On board as well, Bob Weiner, Democratic strategist, columnist, and former communications director for Clinton Drug Czar General Barry McCaffrey. He's also former chief of staff of the House Committee on Aging. Bob, always a pleasure.
Alan, it's good to be with you. I was with the president today at the White House with the Cameron news conference and saw what he said. There's no there in Benghazi. And in fact, the Republicans are so desperate to find anything about Hillary, and she will thrive on a scandal. This will backfire.
I'm curious about that. Amy, to you, what I find very surprising about Bob's assessment of all this is that we now know for a fact that she had received multiple briefings on how it was actually a terrorist attack and not an anti-Muslim video. Yet, after being briefed accordingly, she goes out a couple of days later when greeting the coffins of those being returned from Benghazi. She said to the families there, and she made the direct address in front of the microphones, that this was all attributable to an anti-Muslim video with which they had nothing to do. Now that she's been caught lying in that venue, I don't know how much credibility she has remaining. Your sense of it, Amy Ridenhour.
She doesn't have any credibility remaining except from people who wish to believe her for their own political purposes. She lied. There is no reason to assume that Obama isn't lying today. We also have to wonder why Mr. Obama doesn't seem to be curious about the things that are being uncovered by the House of Representatives. Why is it that a man, so I'm speaking now of Gregory Hicks, the number 2 man in Libya, who spoke, as he did last week, about his efforts to rescue people, but the military people were told that they were not permitted to help, who spoke about telling Hillary Clinton's office exactly what happened that night, very early on. It's come out that he not only voted for Hillary Clinton in 2008, but then for Obama, and for Obama again even afterwards. So when he speaks up, I don't know how anybody can say this is Republicans who are desperate. Why isn't Mr. Obama curious about what happened? It doesn't sound to me like he really gives a damn.
Yeah, Bob, what about that? We've played a clip here plenty of times. I'm going to play it again because I played it too often. It's just almost too much fun for me to do. But we've been talking about the fact that a lot of Democrats are dismissing the Benghazi investigation as simply being political. But I think those with an intellect, beyond a ball of yarn know a little better. One of them is a lion of the left in the form of Massachusetts Congressman Democrat Stephen Lynch. And he said, in his own words, when asked about the scrubbing of the talking points, he said on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace, quote, "Well, it was scrubbed. It was totally inaccurate. There's no excuse for that. It was false information, quote unquote." So, Bob, this is not just a bunch of right-wingers who are upset. And please understand, this same Congressman Lynch strongly defended the administration on everything, from whether or not the Benghazi whistleblowers were intimidated by the administration, or whether or not the State Department was actually blocking witnesses' attorneys from having access to classified materials needed for the representation. But he passionately agreed, Bob, that the administration was guilty of scrubbing the CIA's original talking points describing what happened at the U.S. consulate in Benghazi on September 11th last year. He agreed that it was wrong that the Obama administration removed from the CIA talking points all mention of terrorism and al-Qaeda. And you know what? More and more Democrats are coming around to that way of thinking. Your sense of that, Bob Weiner?
You're missing the point. Having worked in the White House for 6.5 years, Obama is exactly right that talking points is a sideshow. The individual who gets the talking points then gets to say whatever they want verbally in their presentation and in their Q&A. And in fact, if you listen to what Susan Rice said on the Sunday shows, she did say that we don't know what this was. We are investigating whether it was terror as well. So if you look at beyond the first sentence, which I know is difficult, Alan, and you go to the second, third, fourth,
Bob, more disconnected measures, more disconnected measures. There is such a preponderance. There is such a preponderance. I can't waste the show on all the clips we have of Susan Rice making it abundantly clear that as far as she and the administration were concerned at the time, this was all part of a campaign against an anti-Muslim video. It was all part of a spontaneous protest.
You can play the same clip over
That's
and over.
All. And she said it in her own words.
On when she said this
in her own words, over and over and over again. And I'm sorry, if someone says 1,900 times, this is a rose. But on the 1901st time, they say, oops, it's a daffodil. You don't get to say that she was always saying it was a daffodil.
Play the rest of the clip, or you are being unfair.
Oh, not only that, something else, Bob. We've got you in a lie as well. Not you specifically.
You don't have me in a lie.
But no, we have the administration in a lie. Very well. Let me search. I'll find. We do have it with the administration. They made it abundantly clear. They made it abundantly clear that the CIA talking points. Were not changed dramatically by the administration. Carney made it abundantly clear that it was only a minor change, changing the word from consulate to something else. It was a matter of style. He said that was all they did. Now we find out that those talking points were changed 12 times, not just once, 12. So you can't have it both ways.
You're mixing apples. Do I get to talk? You're mixing apples and oranges. I was there on Friday, and he said the White House made the one change from, I think it was embassy to outpost or something. Not the State Department, not everybody else, not the interagency process, which he explained is what every talking points memo goes through, and they, of course, become a marshmallow after you bureaucratize talking points. That's what happens. That's why they get ignored. So, by the way, I think, Alan, when you said either uninformed or lying, I think that's a fair statement, but uninformed is absolutely what they admitted to and what the president himself said, that we didn't know who or why. We knew it could be an act of terror, but also you have to take into account what seems to have gotten such little drift. The New York Times put the context in from that video of developing the swirl of people and then the terrorists playing off that and incorporating it and turning it into something else with the context of the video, bringing in the swarm of people that Muslims go berserk over, whether it's a cartoon or a video. So you have to balance all of that, and then you have your right answer. But to say that this was a conspiracy and to bring in Petraeus saying that it was a conspiracy on his part, too, is really absurd, to be honest, Amy. Absolutely.
Bob. Everybody stop for a second. Bob, you what you're doing is, in one instance, you're taking a peripheral observation, inferring it as if it were a conclusive analysis, and then you're accordingly projecting it as such while still expecting to be taken seriously. This is a Socratic show. Point, counterpoint, counterpoint, counterpoint. Okay. And, Bob, every time you have a legitimate argument, you're always happy to go point, counterpoint. Why? Because you know it's the quickest route to your having the stronger point. The only time you do the things we now hear you doing, when you detour the discussion onto self-indulgent roads of escapism or bring up Bush, is because you know in an on-point setting you can't respond. In an on-point setting you can't respond. I'm going to be very, very brief about this, okay? First, the administration lied, saying only minor changes were made to the CIA talking points when, in fact, there were 12.
White House.
12. It's all the administration.
No, that's not what
the administration has a cabinet. The administration has a cabinet, and that cabinet is comprised of individual heads of all those agencies, of which Hillary Clinton was one. So first the administration lies, saying only minor changes were made to the CIA talking points, when in fact there were 12, according to some rather refreshed reporting from ABC, as well as Steve Hayes of the Weekly Standard before that. But secondly, Bob, and this one's a lot more nipped and tucked,
so the talking points became marshmallows.
Hillary Clinton was exposed as lying by former Libya Mission Chief Gregory Hicks. When we learned from his testimony that Hillary had already been informed that it was indeed a terrorist attack before greeting the coffins coming from Benghazi, at which point she nonetheless made public statements attributing the attack to that being a response to an anti-Muslim video. We know for a fact that Hicks testified that he spoke with the Secretary of State. That is empirically verifiable.
You're completely ignoring my point that the context
your
is still
point,
the video.
Bob, your point doesn't get to dodge a point of your point doesn't get to dodge her empirically verified wrongdoing. She had a conversation with Hicks knowing that it was a terrorist attack. A few days later, she's greeting coffins from Benghazi, insisting that it was a response to an anti-Muslim video.
Still uninformed.
These are mutually exclusive.
Uninformed on the specifics. No matter what Hicks told her, that doesn't make it final to her. Still uninformed on the specifics because she's still investigating.
Predicated on what? You can't say. You just trying to dodge a legitimate point-counterpoint reference. She was informed by the mission chief. She's informed by the mission chief that it was a terrorist attack. A few days later, she goes out and says it's a response to an anti-Muslim video. In a point-counterpoint discussion, Your gal is sucking the big one,
That's
and
what
deservedly
she
so.
thought at that point.
She's sucking the big one,
by the
deservedly
way, you
so.
have not addressed my point of the context of the swirl of the lots of people, but yes, the terrorists played off that video.
You don't get to go from general to general. No. If we're specific to specific, if we're going specific to specific, you don't get to indulgently turn that into specific to general because you're not able to respond on point.
Fine.
What you did was a very popular thing for the far left and those who like to masturbate sophistry.
Oh.
You go ahead and you use a disconnected measure. You use a disconnected measure to dodge the legitimate one already provided to us by the actual dispute in question.
Some new perspective.